Ako si Attorney Darwin Cañete, and my program is Pugad Vloggers, aired every Monday to Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. dito sa Radyo Bandido, simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. on Sky Cable, Channel 224, TV Plus boxes, and on free-to-air TV, facebook.com/DZRJ 8:10 a.m. and our official YouTube channel. Nood po kayo!
Pugad Vloggers, ang kurang titirisin, sa loob sa bayan wawalisin, walang sasantuhin, ang saya-saya nakakabaliw, kasama natin ang tropa. Pugad Vloggers, Pugad Vloggers.
Ayan mga kapugad, this is Attorney Darwin Cañete. Ako po yung host nyo ngayong Wednesday, 7 p.m. dito sa DZRJ 8:10 a.m. And of course mga kapugad, may special guest tayo ngayon. Papasalamat ako, nagpa-unlock siya ngayong gabi. Alam ko she's very busy, pero I will surprise you later. Ang pag-uusapan ko muna habang hindi pa siya nagde-join sa ating livecast is of course with respect to the new policy. Yung nangyayaring, hindi naman policy, pero pinapropose na bagong change sa pagko-cover ng Malacanang. Okay? I'm talking about, of course, yung mainit na issue. No? Na mainit na issue. Ano yung mainit na issue? Vloggers versus journalists. Yan. Siyempre, nung na-announce po yun ng bagong PCO incoming designated PCO Secretary Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, medyo sumipa po yung napakaraming mga boses sa community ng mga journalists, no? Kasi para sa kanila, ang Malacanang beat ang pinaka-prestigious. It is actually the end of a long series of beats, no? Nagsisimula yan palagi sa, for example, criminal beat, yung mga nag-iikot sa mga Metro Manila para mahanap yung mga nangyayaring crime stories. And then you are assigned increasing more prestigious beats as you gain more experience as a rookie reporter. Diba? Siyempre, ngayon, with the announcement that there might be a change of policy or at least an addition to the people covering Malacanang, no? Madami ang nag-react, especially yung mga sinasabi nilang mga people who are known to be prestigious journalists. Although I would probably debate that, no? Kasi hindi naman lahat ng reporter dumaan sa journalism. Diba? But some of them actually gain their places through hard work and experience. So that is equivalent, no? But to say that your bloggers or social media personalities are second class or lower class or unqualified to be able to cover Malacanang. Well, people forget, no? Nakakalimutan po natin, no? Na ang Pangulo natin mismo, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is himself a vlogger. If you are paying attention to social media, BBM has a series of tinatawag ng vlogs, BBM vlogs. It's almost over 100 videos which he nagsishare po sa kanyang BBM page. At mula sa mga videos na yon ay inisa-isa niya yung kanyang mga pananaw, ang kanyang viewpoints tungkol sa iba-ibang issues na gusto niyang komentaryuhan. At siya na ngayon ang Pangulo ng ating bayan sa darating na July 1. So to say that vloggers or bloggers or social media personalities who want to comment and cover the president, the incoming president, forget, nakakalimutan niyo po na ang Pangulo mismo na parating ay vlogger. Okay? She is available. Kasi ganito po yun eh. Doon po nung eleksyon, o nung natalo po siya, no? Natalo daw siya, o nadaya, depende kung sino kausap mo. Nadaya o natalo, but let's call spade a spade. Hindi siya nakaupo bilang vice presidente. 'Di ba? Nung eleksyon, nung 2016. Oh, meron bang mainstream media ang nag-cover sa kanya? Meron bang nag-feature ng kanyang napakaraming ebidensya or iniharap niyang ebidensya sa Supreme Court para labanan o baliktarin ang naproklama ng COMELEC at dumaan doon, no? Yung kanyang protesta. Nagbayad siya ng filing fee, mga ganon. Ang merong coverage, pero not as, of course, favorable, no? Yung sinasabing favorable coverage, yung sinasabi na binibigyan ng kabuuan ang kanyang, ang kanyang protesta. Ang meron, if you look at social media, ito yung magpo-post ka sa protesta niya, palaging may naka-attach na context na dinidikit ng mga fact-checkers na sinasabing walang dayaan. Pero hindi ganoon ang, ito na ang ating resource person. Ayan. May I have the privilege to introduce one of the most, how would you say, one of the people I admire in the incoming administration of BBM. Kasi hindi na po siya iba sa atin. Unang-una, siya po ay hindi na rin iba sa inyo. Siya po ay isa sa mga kilalang host. Alam ko, namimiss niya na siya sa radyo kasi hindi na siya nag-duty doon. Kasi umaga yun eh. Nandun siya sa opisina, sa kanyang bagong opisina. But, she's here, no? Attorney, PCO Designate Secretary, Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles. She will join us in a while, bibigyan linaw yung kanyang posisyon. Kasi I think there has been an unfair coverage of the issue. So yun ang mangyayari. But habang hindi pa siya nakaka-join sa atin, yan. Connecting to audio. Ayun. So babatiin muna natin yung mga nasa natin, sa nag-join sa atin. Roxanne Costo, si Eneri Padron. Trixie, are you there? Yan. Angelo Redaha, Sam DC Nalagan, Beng Arnicilia Yanguas, LC Vivian Mira Lumanag, Zepi Zabala, yun, Priscilla Kojima, Doc Ethel Pineda is online. Doc, join us if you have time. Ma'am Trixie, are you there? Hello? Parang wala pang audio. Doc, Tek, okay ba ako sa audio? Okay ba yung audio natin? Hello? Okay naman pala. So, good. Hindi, naka-join na ba sa atin yung ating special guest? Yun. Anyway, pagpatuloy din natin, I think, no, honestly, this is one of the better appointments of incoming President PBM, si PCO, incoming PCO Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles. Number one, she understands the law. So, in terms of absorption of policies, yung to be able to communicate sabi na natin na komplikadong issues, no? Wait ha. Yan. Beautiful. Attorney Trixie, can you see me? Yes, can you see me? Hello. Say, Tek, paki-share natin ang window kasama si Attorney Trixie. Hello.
Hi, Darwin.
Hello, Attorney Trixie.
Hi.
Should I say incoming Secretary? Incoming, but they never saw it coming.
Yeah, I like that. the correct term, or at least the ones that we use, is Secretary Designate.
Secretary Designate.
Yes.
You will be, well, sabi na natin, you will be the first blogger
Yes.
to be in Malacanang. No. Second pala. The first would be
The president. The
president.
president-elect.
The president-elect. You are
Yes.
the first woman.
Good
Although,
one.
good one, di ba? You're the first
uh,
woman. Yes.
Also the first woman press secretary.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. The
yes.
first woman press secretary. That is a very, very good, very good
Yes,
historical precedent, no? And, of course, we had many women presidents, no?
Yes.
You
we
had
have
Cory, you had
Cory,
Jimmy,
Gloria.
you had Tutoy.
Ooh. Parang, that went by me.
And then you go, boy, it's gonna be fast, diba? Okay,
Yeah. Okay, go.
let's talk about the
Mhm.
incoming, no? People know you as a blogger, but people like me who know you outside of your public persona know you more in certain ways, diba?
Okay, yes.
And there's no innuendo there.
It's not in the biblical sense.
It's not the
no.
biblical sense. Okay, so let's go back to the things that your passions are art, history, archaeology, arts.
Yes.
That side of you, let's explore that, no? Explore
All right.
natin yan. What do you find fascinating about outside of law and what you're doing in broadcasting? Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, of course. My early career as a lawyer was in the National Commission for Culture and the Arts.
Yes.
So, but my mother, when we were younger, sent me to have piano lessons, voice lessons, art lessons. I think she was trying to keep me out of her hair. So we had all of these because was supposed to make you well-rounded. But that started the early interest in art. And then later on, it expanded once I was already in the NCCA. And I was very, very lucky that the people who were there, expanded my mind and expanded the interests. There's national artists, the late national artist, Eddie Romero, who was a frequent lunch date. We just have lunch and talk. We'll talk art, we'll talk history, we'll talk views on life, things like that. The chairman at the time was somebody you know, si Jaime Laya, former Central
Yes.
Bank governor, former DepEd, former DBM under the first Marcos presidency. We also had people like Felipe De Leon Jr., son of another national artist, who is a professor in UP for aesthetics and just seems to know so much. So he was at the time on the Gamaba Gawad Manlilikha ng Bayan Awards administration, and he taught me a lot about the indigenous peoples and so on. So my early introduction had all of these great people teaching me informally about heritage, about culture, art, music, cinema, things like that. And the discussions were always they weren't highbrow, but they were very, very easy to understand. But at the same time, you were creating depth of appreciation for things like the cinematic arts. Eddie Romero had particular interest also in saving a lot of our old films.
Yes.
And he would expound on how important each of these films were. So he was the one who taught me that there were several golden ages, for instance, in cinema. But of course, the one that he was part of is one of the most important. They were recent. They were in the 70s. And, he had Ganito Kami Noon. He had Aguila. He was also part of that movie, Manila Open City, where there were no less than 3 national artists. It was Eddie Romero. I think the one of his co-directors is also a national artist. And then, of course, Fernando Po Jr. was also a national artist. So, this was the start. And then ultimately, I became Commissioner for Cultural Heritage.
Yes.
So that's something most people don't know, because they know they know us as bloggers, di ba?
Bloggers.
And we talk about politics, talk about law, pero it's very rare that we actually get to expound on things like art.
We nerd out on those things eh. Parang ano sa atin eh. Deep dive tayo pag ganong topics eh.
Correct. Like for instance, your appreciation of pop culture as
Yes.
exemplified by comic art,
Yeah.
because comics are a lot more complicated than most people think. You know, there's the colorist, there's the illustrator,
Yes.
and of course the writer, and so there's all. It's like a multi-medium thing,
Yes.
and a lot of people didn't really appreciate them until the advent of the, how do you call this, the graphic novel.
Yes.
When they became graphic novels, suddenly we appreciated them as art forms. So now we can move backwards.
Yes.
Even with us, people like Clary Alcala is now a national artist, but he was considered a cartoonist. So now
Yes.
we appreciate it as an art form already.
Yes.
So, di ba? Alam ko yung interests mo.
Kasi ano tayo eh, ang impression kasi nila pag PCO or spokesman ng press secretary, you are basically a more of alam mo yung soapbox, more of a megaphone for the presidency.
Precisely.
Diba?
That's exactly what it is.
Megaphone. So basically ito yung gustong sabihin ng president or any of his policy initiatives, and then what you do is communicate it to everybody, disseminate it.
Yes.
Pero that makes you like a passive thing, like more of glorified stenographer. But there's more to you, as far as I know.
Well, at least even in PCOO, so even beyond that, since there's no spokesperson, actually the president makes the pronouncement, we read out the policy, we explain it if it's necessary. But beyond that, I'm also going to be chief of the PCOO, which means you had attached agencies and units, RTVM, PTV, IBC, RPN9, Radyo Pilipinas, PIA, PNA. There's more, actually, the Presidential News Desk. You have the broadcast, Radyo Pilipinas is part of that. Then you also have the Bureau of Communication Service. Then you have the National Printing Office and Apple.
Yes.
So
just fun fact, I was my first job was with BCS, OPS.
Oh, see, there you go, diba? They're quite important given that they're the government agency that prints books and other materials.
Yes, lalo na yung mga collaterals pag may mga international conventions. And then katabi nila International Press Center, di ba? Mga ganon.
Correct.
Yung PCO kasi is an entire bureaucracy.
That's
di ba?
true.
And to give credit to your predecessor or current incumbent, he upgraded many stations, no?
Yes.
The physical plants.
Yes.
Pero
yes. For example, in PTV, he bought the transmitter and upgraded the lobby because nga naman we're the premier government television station. It should be as presentable as the commercial ones. So there's that. The Bureau of Communication Service got its ISO. So it's actually performing very well. So
that was from our friend Pebbles Duque.
Yes, he used to head that one. That's true. So they're all these little what we consider little, but they're not really. They have such a widespread jurisdiction. So because there are so many of these diverse units as well as the GOCCs, no.
Yes.
The PCOO is you're right. It's an entire bureaucracy, and then you have to conduct the accomplishments of all of them. So you oversee the operations and make sure that they're running as efficiently as necessary. We also hold the official gazette.
Yes. Teka, may tanong ako doon. Okay. Maraming mga nagreklamo, bigla daw nawala ang official gazette website.
I think it was either a glitch or they were just upgrading it. So it's not. I do not understand why a temporary disappearance for a few hours, even a day, is going to make such a big controversy. As long as they were announcing that this is under maintenance and so on,
paranoid sila sa historical revisionism mantra nila, narrative nila. I don't
think
understand.
there was that concern that some things might be revised when it was
Yes.
down. But I think these things, I understand their concerns given the current national conversation. Pero, conclusions really should be based on evidence, not
Yes.
not on the mere fact of its disappearance. But all's well that ends well. It's back, and there are no revisions being made. I think it should be par
I
for the
like
course.
the way you phrase it. I really like it. National
Mm.
conversation.
Yes.
Where did that turn of phrase come from? Ano yung
I,
ano nun? It's a very brilliantly coined term
yeah.
na maganda. Very, very elegant. How's that?
I've been using it for a while. I'm not sure where I picked it up. I'm going to find out. But it's how the Filipinos in general, we are very communal. Yeah.
Mhm.
You notice if there is a wreck, a car accident, people like to crane their necks, they'll watch. Yung tinatawag nating usisero. It's such a
Yes.
Pinoy thing. There's shooting in the streets. People don't run away from that. Many
Yes.
of us run towards it to find out what's going on.
Yes.
So we like to put in our 2 cents worth. If something is happening, let's say a high government official says something and it is marginally brilliant or absolutely brilliant, whatever, we put in our 2 cents worth. And then there's
Yes.
this concept of how do you call consultations.
Yes.
We need to bring people into the idea before you launch it, because you launch it and nobody likes it, and then they give their 2 cents worth afterwards. It doesn't end well. So
Yes.
we're very, very communal. This is also where the crowd mentality can be explained. You pop your head above the crowd, they'll try to put you down because we like to all be together.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily inggit. It's more like because we belong, we are part of the group, and we want everybody to be more or less on the same page, more or less on the same level. It's not always a good thing. It's not always a bad thing either. So yung ganyan na we're always talking to each other. So there are huge, raging debates going on all across social media. Social media didn't create this. It gave us a platform for what was already happening. So in the 70s and 80s, before the internet became the place to exchange ideas, people would gossip, or at least that's what we called it. Diba? They would say, coffee shop gossip says ganito. And we've had changes in leadership born out of that kind of coffee shop gossip, when actually it's the people talking. So
Yes.
when we post on social media, that's us talking to each other. That's us expressing ourselves as part of a group. So that is the national conversation. That's what we're talking about. And that's significant. And because our government is of the people and by the people, although that's in the U.S. Constitution, we we uh, it isn't that people will vote for the leaders and wala na yon.
Yes.
By being part of this conversation, we are part of the governance. This is the feedback that our leaders get from
So,
us.
you're creating this feedback mechanism for
Yes,
the government to check, am I doing well? Tama
yes,
ka, are we in the right path? Papunta
yes.
ka yes. So
Or
basically, ganun.
or if
Mhm.
we express, if we misunderstand, it's because we have not had the level of information, the kind of information that we need to make the national conversation more informed. So, for example, something happens. So, let's say an example is Marawi. We know that there is violence, you know that there was something going on, but we didn't know where it was coming from. So,
Yes.
the conversation will reflect that. We don't know what's going on, but we must say something. When we say something, we make ourselves part of it. So, government must respond accordingly. We have to, it's not just government giving information, it's also government listening. So that's why it's
Yes.
called a national conversation.
Pero this is very high-minded, no? Problema kasi
Yeah.
natin dito, the
Mm.
exchange, especially the past few years, yung toxic,
Mm.
including cancel culture conversations, mga ganun, no?
Yes.
The level of discourse bumaba. We're
Mm.
resorted to throwing labels and mud against each other. Do you think PCO can do something about that?
Oh, I don't think that we can actually, yeah, what do you call this?
Yeah.
Insert ourselves into that,
Yes.
in that kind of atmosphere. But we can provide information. I
Mm.
think that we need to step up our game and bring people up to that level where they understand, for example, what is the basis of the policy, how is it being responsive, why it's built this way. So sometimes you have to explain what is the underlying law? Ano yung basehan dito? Bibigay niyo yung
Right.
basehan. Explain niyo kung ano yung constitutional limitations ng mga ganyan. I-explain mo, bakit tayo may ganitong polisiya? So halimbawa, in the Duterte administration, the importation policy for agricultural products such as but not limited to pork
Yes.
came about. So what I think the PCOO should have been doing or could have done is to
Mm.
explain, well, this was a response to the high prices of pork, and it demanded that we be able to create to be able to bring down those prices, and
Yes.
importing was going to do precisely that. Now, the conversation could have been more like, should we import or not import? Should we just strengthen local hog raisers and so on? So, government plays a role in how that conversation is going to go. If it had been explained very well that the purpose of the importation, maybe it would have been easier for people, and the discussion would have been at a higher level.
Correct. I remember your frustration during the height of the drug war, mga beginning 2016, 2017. We all felt that the pushback against the mainstream media narrative of extrajudicial killings was very weak.
At
Diba?
the start, definitely. The
At the start,
pushback
definitely.
came from social media.
Yes.
At least that's what, kasi nandun tayo
Yeah.
sa Baldagula na yun. But at the time, I was still part of PCOO, and one of the things that we did was to go to the PNP and find out, teka muna, ano ba talaga ang rate ng killings? Ano ba talaga, ilan ba
Yes.
talaga ang namatay
Yes.
dito sa drug war? And it turns out that the PNP had been coming up with statistics every year. Regularly, they would even give updates every month.
Yes.
And it wasn't as bad as people were saying, because yun nga, there was a publication that was running what they called a kill list. Remember this?
Yes. Yeah, Inquirer.
Which they eventually stopped kasi
Yes.
hindi lahat ng nalalabas doon ay namatay doon sa laban sa droga.
Yes.
Some of them were hold up,
Yes.
personal reasons, jealousy, things like that. Revenge. So
Yeah.
they were not even really related to the drug war.
They were
pero
lumped
bigyan.
together.
Correct.
They were squashed together to make it appear, no? Para palabas na it is bad.
Mm. So, di ba? And then there were publications that were printing 20,000 or 30,000 dead in the drug war, when it is not supported by any of the statistics that are printed that are published by the PNP itself. So paano
Oo.
yun? Di ba?
Oh, Doc Ethel is joining us,
Ay,
Doc.
Hi! Wait, hold on for a while. There you go. I could not resist. You know how fast I drove. Good evening, Secretary Designate, Attorney Trixie Angeles. Good evening.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good, very good.
Saying something about the drug war.
Yes, we were talking about how the numbers, when we were with PCO, when I was with PCOO, one of the things that we did to help out in the national conversation was to bring out the statistics of the PNP. And I'm sure you guys remember this, that it wasn't as bad as it was made out to be, as it was
Yes.
being made out to be by some publication.
And by someone else.
There is that also. So, you know, those are interesting times. So,
Okay, let me read another part of the
we
conversation.
learned, di ba?
How things ito hindi ka pa nakakaupo sa PCO. You're already.
Yes, of course.
Paano nagbago yung lifestyle mo dito upon being designated as PCO Secretary? Are you still sleeping, ma'am?
Ouch. Not really. But it's different because my sleeping hours are now different
Yeah.
from when I had the morning radio show. So there's that. There's well, I feel most of the cabinet secretary designates anyway have already started working. Uh, in my case, it's just more obvious because I conduct some of the press briefings.
Yes.
We have to answer so many questions, and for some reason, I get a lot of requests for interviews. So that keeps us busy. I heard that. So yeah, that's pretty much my day. Something like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 interviews in one day.
Uh-huh.
Then, if I'm lucky, no press briefing on that day. And then there are other things that we have to smooth out. Of course, studying the agencies that are under the PCOO, studying the current the framework, the staffing pattern, whatever things that we have to resolve, problems and so on, budgets, because the budget hearing is coming up. So we have to be studying all of this in the meantime. So yes, that's been keeping us up.
What will be the working style of the president-elect? What will his workday be like? Will he be like PRRD who starts the day at noon, or will he be like GMA who's up early, FDR who's an early bird?
Yeah, it was 4 o'clock in the morning for FDR. President Gloria was punctual. I think she was an 8 to 5 person. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. Because right now we're still getting the feel of it, but he works constantly because they're like a stream of people all the time. So I'm the one wondering if he's getting any sleep. But this is different kind of work. You saw how he was during the campaign, diba? And it was, I don't know how he did it. He would have caravan, sometimes 2 rallies in one day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And these were really, yeah, I couldn't do that. They out in the hot sun, shaking hands, glad handing everybody, and he was cheerful the whole time. That for me was the marking point. You can do all of that, but it's not going to keep you cheerful for like 18 hours in one day.
I think that's the Imelda gene. Really, diba? The first lady says that she just sleeps 4 hours a day, and she's so gracious the whole day, like she just woke up. Huh?
Same. I think it's probably it. BBM is gracious morning to evening. Doesn't matter what the schedule is. He always has a good word for everybody. You don't even get the sense that he's tired, even if you know that there must be a limit to all of this energy. But it's how do you call this? It's well paced though. His day, if you'll notice, uh he may, when he spends time with you, even if it's a short time, you feel like you're the only person in the world that he's talking to. So he's very good at
the ideal boyfriend.
or president.
Close enough actually. When you were describing that he makes you the only person, Bill Clinton yan eh. Bill Clinton yan eh.
Like, and he knows you. When even if it's somebody he just met, he always has some interesting thing about that person, and so it means that he studies. He when he meets people, he knows at least a little something about that person. That something will come up in the conversation. So there's always that. He's very personable. So that's what I like about him. He's an easy sell, kumbaga. No need to embellish anything. He's just I think the title is Mr. Nice Guy. because
Yeah.
there's not a mean bone in his body. There's always something good to say. And even when there's criticism, he will either laugh it off or say, well, ganyan talaga. So, I need some of that. Whatever it is he's eating, I need some of that.
No, no, no.
Because, you know,
We
grabe
can
the
relate.
patience.
Husbands can relate.
Or why?
Mr. Nice Guy, I think 31 million people will agree.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. He's generally
But-
Mr. Nice Guy, yeah.
Okay, we go to the now. This is now the exciting part. This is where you
Okay.
step into it. You announce a
Okay.
policy. This is you announce a new turn for bloggers. Okay, I am sure
Okay,
you're tired
yeah.
of but I am sure you already.
I'm not.
polished your answer for this.
I'm glad.
Okay, I'm not asking regarding the merits. I'm asking why was this something that you had in mind ever since? What is the reasoning behind letting bloggers join the club of the Malacanang
The score.
covers?
Mm.
Yes.
Well, okay. Partly me, partly really the sense of the campaign team, no? Because this is actually a review. You're not inventing this out of thin air. The policy is in place. It had not been implemented. And I
Yes.
know because I wrote that policy for PCO when we were there, no, when I was with ASEC Mocha. So that's one. Number two is that, well, I mean, let's face it, can you really ignore social media in this day and age and after an election like that, where, as we said, the national conversation is being conducted online. It's on
That's
social media. We
That's
talk to
correct.
each other. We either reinforce or blast away each other's opinions or theories of what's going on. And how can you ignore that? How can you not make that part of the government policy? But I would like to reiterate, we're not imposing anything. We're reviewing the policy. And so we're listening to everybody who has an opinion on this. And if those opinions are reasonable, then we certainly will take that into consideration. So, but it did not come from thin air. No, we didn't just, or we're not even pushing an agenda here. Well, it's true that I may be one of the first press secretaries who come more from a social media or vlogging background rather than a traditional one, though I will reiterate that I have both.
Mm.
This, yeah, it's a new thing, so it's definitely going to elicit a lot of reactions.
Yeah.
But we'll listen to all those reactions.
Uh-huh.
Pero marami ng bad reaction. Siyempre, humirit na yung mainstream media. There was a pushback. There was
Of
even this
course.
code card of Berhel Santos.
Yeah. Blogging is cheap. He
Blogging
said.
is cheap.
Well, we're not responsible for those misconceptions. But I think that we cannot also be dismissive of how traditional media feels. Because I think it's symbiotic. Social media still relies on trad media to deliver the straight news. So,
Yes.
but social media provides analysis. It provides commentary.
Commentary.
So it's more on that end. But remember, we are also, those in social media, we're the ones who also report things. For example, fire in the mall. You rely on the videos of the ordinary citizens who were there. And these are used by traditional media for their own reportage. So
Yeah,
it's symbiotic. One
Yes.
cannot, the one enriches the other. So
Yeah.
it shouldn't really be an antagonistic approach to this one. But I like the fact that by bringing out the review of the policy, all of these are coming out, so we can actually help level the understanding of each side.
Mhm. Well, just the other day, that news about that SUV running over the security guard on the street, it came from a post on social media, right?
Precisely.
So, yeah, social media is the present and future of information.
Correct, correct. But and then the other facts will be provided or had been provided by traditional media. The publications, the networks had the reporters on it, so they came up with the name, what was going on, that a summons had been served, and so on. So, like I said, social media provided the video of the original
Mhm.
event, and then it's made fuller. The story is made fuller by the participation of trad media. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be us only or you only. And also, trad media also goes to social media. I mean, uh, people, businessmen, publications, all of that, they go to social media to mine it for talent. You, hello, Pugad vloggers. No, di ba? They get people from social media, bring them into traditional media in the hopes that they will bring their following along with them.
Mhm.
So, Pride Media recognizes the reach of social media. So the nice thing about the review here is that we're seeing, or we should be seeing, that there are both sides to this one. And
That's
it
correct.
doesn't necessarily have to be a monopoly of one or the
Uh-huh.
other.
That's correct. That's correct. No,
Okay.
we are not usurping the vloggers, the social media practitioners are not going to usurp the place or the station or the status of traditional media practitioners.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
There's
okay.
always room for
Right.
one more.
Ito yung gatekeeping ng mainstream media. Sabi nila, pag pumili ka ng vloggers na magko-cover sa Malacan, dapat ganitong klase, dapat may ethics, dapat yan. Are those covered by your policy already, or they're just, andun na eh. Kung binasa lang sana nila eh, di ba? What do you mean? Can you elaborate on that, or do you have any response to that? Sabi nila, vloggers have to be like this, like that.
Yeah, are there guidelines set?
Guidelines.
The policy, well, the announcement was that we're going to review the policy.
Yeah.
So the policy is to allow them to accredit them, and the accreditation is per event. So in other words, we invite them. They go through the rigmarole, they go through PSG, they submit certain requirements, and this is per
Mhm.
event.
Mhm.
And then the people who will be invited have to have a minimum of about 20,000. So, but that's the old policy. The reason for the review is, number one, is it timely? Is it the right time? Is it something that we can do together with the traditional media who makes traditional coverage? Are we going to put bloggers in using the same method? They're invited to press briefings and so on. Do we have separate events for them? Things like that. These have to be decided, and we're listening. We're listening to all of the feedback. Now, some of the feedback, some of the proposals are unconstitutional, so we're not going to go with that. But,
Like
but it
what?
does,
I'm curious.
like, for me, for example, without going into the legalities anymore, but more on the practicality,
Mm.
we invite social media, we invite bloggers precisely because they're bloggers. They
Mm.
already know how to talk to their audience. They already
Mhm.
have a built-in
Mhm.
audience, and something is already working
Mhm.
there. So if it is working, why fix it? So
Mhm.
there are impositions like certain grammatical rules, certain rules on how to write, and so on, which presupposes that bloggers are only writers or write. But there are vloggers who do videos. And kumbaga, the whole gamut of what social media actually does is understood only at the most basic level. So for me, we want to, kumbaga, we're just simply talking about access and the capability to
Access.
ask questions.
Mhm.
Because that's what coverage is. You invite them all to one place, you make an announcement, they get to ask questions.
Mhm.
So, are we going to distinguish what media the people we invite are going to use? Number one. Number two, are we going to distinguish between the kind of languages they use, the kind of talk? Blogger talk is certainly different from journalistic writing.
Yes.
Is it important pa ba to make a distinction? Yeah. What we want to go for is accuracy. And if it
Mhm.
is accuracy, does it matter what language you use? whether we're talking about language as in the formal language, Tagalog, Hiligaynon, Bisaya, whatever, that may be important, but bloggers have a specific language also. We are not limited by the rule that we should speak only in a single language in one sentence. We're not limited by number of words, certain structures in our paragraphs. What we go for is connection. Connection to our audience and being able to deliver the information with accuracy while at the same time making sure that they are level in our knowledge of the field. So there's that. And I think that sometimes this is misappreciated. So, but we keep listening. I understand, excuse me, the concerns of traditional media.
Yes.
Some of them believe that the questions might not be at par with the kind of questions that they will be asking. They're worried about educational attainment of the people who will be participating in the press briefings. I understand. Because sometimes there's so many of them, only a few get to actually ask questions. So we need to address their concerns as well. But yun nga, what we would like to do is to make it fair. Kumbaga, in any proposal, if ever we do accredit bloggers or vloggers, then whatever policy we put in place has to be fair. We cannot impose on them something we don't impose on traditional media. If we insist, for instance, on a security clearance, well, that's correct. Everybody must get a security clearance. Nobody is going to get past the PSG when they ask you for your credentials. So, things like that. We want just to be fair.
Speaking of fairness, sorry, attorney.
Hindi,
Go ahead.
ang sa akin dito is putting the journalists on a pedestal. Parang ano sila they are the end all and be all of all of these virtues of a person covering any particular topic. And then you have Karen Davila. And then asking brilliant questions.
I'm glad I wasn't drinking that
Sarcasm.
time.
Of course, bloggers have their own niches. Okay, may mga niche. So if you want to reach every part of society, then you have to allow variety. You have to allow diversity in people who are going to get across the news. Diba? So you will be able to reach more people. The other question, Attorney Cruz, is that which bloggers will be accredited? Like someone said that, oh, you're just going to accredit those who are for BBM and the others will be marginalized. Is that going to happen?
Well, like I said, we will always, any policy that we institute will have to will have to pass constitutional muster. So it means that if we're going to impose any standards, then the standards have to be fair and relevant to what we're trying to achieve. So if the purpose is a wide dissemination of information, then it doesn't really matter what your political inclination is. We're just simply looking at people who are effective disseminators. Now, we cannot control people's opinions either. So, does it really matter if the people who have been invited, if they fit the criteria of number of followings, then we cannot make a distinction with their political leanings. We just want, like I said, any policy will have to be fair. So let's put that to rest. The threshold question still is, are we going to allow them and at what level? So we can discuss details later on, but they know very well that the Constitution will demand that the policy be fair. It wouldn't be fair if we're going to make distinctions about political leanings.
Well, ang worry din ng ibang traditional media is if you put bloggers, that these are people who will be spreading disinformation and fake news, because ako natawag na akong fake news peddler eh. So, ano yan? They're worried of that we will be the equivalent of a propaganda machinery with the blessings of the palace. Any
Mhm.
any
Reaction to that one.
reaction to that statement?
The presumption kasi is that anything related to praising the government is propaganda. But
Yes.
and I really don't know what to make of that statement. Kasi inisip ko, if it was true, tell me what is wrong with that. Yeah,
Yes.
diba? For example, if we do accredit bloggers subject to a particular objective standard, and the ones who were able to comply with that standard are people who voted for the president-elect, uh, how is this a bad thing? If the standards are objective, if it's applied equally to everybody who applies, how is this going to be a bad thing? We're not out to control what people think in the sense that, we reward only those who have supported BBM. The policy is intended to generate more disseminators of information. So I don't see how it would be relevant that they would bring in political leanings. Oh, by the way, do we question it when we accredit the traditional media to cover the, let's say, Malacanang beat? Do
Yes.
we subject them to the test of political leaning? Do we question that? So I think that whatever questions we ask about accrediting bloggers or vloggers must also be tossed to traditional media. Do we ask you your political leanings? Are you concerned? And are the public concerned about your political leanings? Because then your questions about political leanings of vloggers would be valid.
Mhm. If you
So,
know, if the government, this dispensation, screened only, allowed only those who are for this government, there would be no one left to cover Malacanang. I think.
that's the point. That's it. That's it. So, kasi nga, opinion shouldn't matter. Well, in the case of vloggers, most of us are opinion writers and also opinion generators. And I think that's the real power of social media is that we don't naman tell people that we're straight news. But we don't say that okay, this is that we always it's understood that when we post on our personal pages, these are our personal opinions and thoughts. But if you will look at the Filipino consumer of these of social media posts and so on, they do like the fact that they are opinions. They do like the more personable way that blogs are written. So it's I think that that's a difference. I don't think bloggers or vloggers are trying to supplant journalists. We're not trying to take away their niche or their power or their jurisdictions or anything like that. I think that this is just we're just posing a simple question. Can we expand this so that more people can disseminate information? And that's it. No, it's not a war for us, and it shouldn't be a war. The idea is to be inclusive. The idea is unity. We weren't, we didn't, it's not bloggers versus traditional media. It's how many
Yes.
more can we accommodate?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, siguro this would be a very appropriate question for you, no? When you heard or the news that you will become the designated PCO Secretary, anong dating sa'yo, ma'am? Share with us that moment in time.
Somewhere between the time that the idea was tossed and I was already helping out and getting to know people in campaign headquarters and all that. And then I said something like, "Wait, I don't remember saying yes to this." So that was the reaction. Did I say yes? I don't remember this. But um, partly it was partly something like I don't believe it. don't believe this is happening. Are you kidding?
Surreal.
And all that, you're thinking all of that in like 1 second. All of those thoughts were gonna. Are you kidding? What? Who, me? Things like that. And then I did ask. I did ask for some time, and after about a week, I accepted formally. But even before then, I was already looking, getting to know the people who were there, just to get a feel of how things are being done there, the kind of the work that they were doing, and so on. So I joined them, and it's been a ride ever since. You know
Mhm.
how nice, BBM is. Well, the
Yes.
people who work with him are just as nice. So
Yes.
Wow.
it's infectious.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you've seen the ES designate Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez. Did you
Uh,
Mhm.
notice how nice he is when he
Mhm.
talks? It's always it's calm, rational, and so on. So it's compared to the kind of
unflappable.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Flappable.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Unflappable.
Exactly. It's he's Mr. Cool,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
think they have similar
yeah.
personalities and they tend to gather. They tend to attract each other.
That's
Huh?
true. That's
Uh,
true.
but for you, what do you think would be the most daunting thing about being the PCOO secretary?
Finding funding. We're talking about government here, diba?
Mm.
So we want. I need to get policy directives first, no, from the president and president elect to determine, for instance, what is the goal, what is his vision for these agencies. But in the case of let's say PTV, that's burdened with so many financing problems and so on, the task is to be well for whatever the directive the president elect gives is for us to be able to meet that, and that requires some money. So finding money for that is going to be crucial. There are also, for example, there's labor problems in some of the GOCCs. There's at first, I was only daunted by the idea that the moment that the realization sinks in that I'm going to be in charge of PCOO, there'll be elements on social media who will make it a pastime to just say something bad about me every day. So at first, that was the first thing that I thought. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be bashed regularly every day. And I
Mm.
realized, wait, no, who cares, diba? If you're
Mhm.
doing it
Mhm.
right. And then now we're concentrating on what we have to do and to be able to do it right. And now I am terrified. So so it's social media, the buzz and all that. That's important for me in the sense that I need to get an opinion. I need to know what people are thinking and what people need. So it's feedback mechanism. The bashing you can ignore, especially if they have no basis. But
In the
yeah,
in the
solving the problem.
immortal, sorry, in the immortal words of Mr. Jojo Robles, you do not stop at every dog that
The barking dog.
bites.
Yes. Do not stop at every barking dog. That's true. But for me,
But the barking dog did
we
not
need
win.
to. It's true also. That's true. There's that. Barking dogs. So that we don't single out the barking dog in your mind. So,
But how very appropriate that there's going to be a new exorcism center.
a new yes, there's that. There's that.
Well,
But yeah, no.
if you look at the time, it's 7:55. We started an hour ago, more or less, and we're at the near the end of the program. So I'd like to greet my wife and my two kids, Grace and Sophia, and of course my fellow prosecutors, Fiscal Joel, if you're listening, and of course, Doc, do you have any words to say before we end the program?
keep your mask on and be updated with your vaccination. If you are eligible for your second booster, please go. But we're in a good place now.
And I leave the
Less
last word to our...
hospitalizations, less deaths.
So the last word would be, of course, to our distinguished guest. Attorney Trixie, you have something to say to our audience listening now.
One of the first things that I ask the media to do is to be gentle. Haha. Of course, that was a wish. I appreciate everything that is said about myself, about how I conduct press briefings and all that. I appreciate all feedback, especially the reasonable ones. So I'm going to keep listening, and I'm going to keep in mind the fact that I am the public servant here, going to be one, and that the opinion of people will always matter to me, particularly when it comes to doing our job. So we appreciate everything, good or bad, that is said about us, because it helps us do our job better. So I hope that on July 1, we're ready, and that everybody help out, whether it's helping out through criticism or helping out through encouragement, all will be appreciated. Thank you.
By the way, that's a nice Araceli dance at your back.
Yes. How did you know? Good eye, good eye.
You know, instead of be gentle, you should tell them, wear protection.
Yeah. Get good antivirus. Yeah.
And with that, we thank our guest, Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, PCOO Secretary Designate of the PCOO. She will bring with her extensive experience in broadcast media and blogging, and of course her bullshit detection radar. So tried and tested. So thank you for joining us here at Pugad Vloggers. Thank you, Doc Ethel. Thank you, Attorney Trixie. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.